All right. Hi, everyone. It's the top of the hour, so we can go ahead and get started today. So I'm Kaylee Hansen with SVA Consulting, and this webinar will be really walking through all of the new features within Acumatica's new release, which will be 25R2. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started today. As we go through today's webinar, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll be trying to monitor as we go through. Otherwise, we'll also have a designated Q&A session at the end. But again, any questions you have, feel free to send those our way, and we'll try to just adjust those as we go through. All right. So to start, just a little bit of an agenda. We'll walk through some of the logistics around Acumatica's upgrades. So we'll talk through the release notes, some additional resources that you guys can leverage in terms of digging into 25R2. Then we'll talk through the project support lifecycle. So how long these different releases of Acumatica remain based off of the one that you're on currently, and then these new releases as well. So we'll talk about that from a timeline perspective. We'll walk through what the upgrade process could look like as well. So many of you may have already gone through these upgrade processes before, but if you're new to the process, we'll just briefly highlight what you can expect from that upgrade process side if you're leveraging Acumatica, and then SVA support for upgrading as well. And then lastly, what everyone's kind of interested in is the new feature summary. So there's a lot of new features within 25R2. Unfortunately, we won't have time to dive into all of those, but we did try to pluck out some of those highlights of the 25R2 release that we'll walk through today. All right, so with that, a couple of resources. So one, if you go into the Acumatica community, the 25R2 release notes are posted within there. So you can dive into those. I will say there's a lot of information there, but they do a really good job of breaking up all of those new features, anything that's changed from the last version to now this 25R2 version. And all of the new features will be documented pretty thoroughly as well. So again, that's where you can go to see all the new features, because we'll just highlight some of those key points and some of those main features that have come out in today's webinar. Another resource, if you go to acumatica.com, they do have a specific page dedicated to 25R2. Something new that I've seen them roll out, which really highlights some of those core components of the big highlights of 25R2, some videos and those types of things as well. So another good resource to look at if looking at the 25R2 release. In terms of just the product lifecycle timeline, so all of the new releases within Acumatica are valid for 18 months. So Acumatica has two major releases each year. One will be in kind of the spring time frame, so typically around April, and then the other will happen around October. So the R2 is in October, and then as you'd expect, R1 in kind of that April time frame. So with those two releases, those are always supported for 18 months. So this just gives you kind of a list of all of the current supported releases of Acumatica. And then you can see there, when it's expected to be retired. So as you start approaching that, that expiring date, that's when you'd want to upgrade as well. Most of our customers will upgrade, at least once a year. And so what we'll do is kind of pick that upgrade time frame, and then we'll start to get into that routine of upgrading at that time every single year. So just a little bit of a look on how long you can expect these specific releases to be active. All right. So next, we'll take a look at some of the upgrade process. So again, this may be a process that some of you are already familiar with. You may have already gone through it with us a couple of times, but really, if you're leveraging SVA to help you with this upgrade process, this is really the approach that we would take and what you can kind of expect. Again, the degree to which customers will leverage SVA depends on your guys' use case, how complex your environment might be as well. Certain aspects of these customers can kind of self-service as well. But this is typically what you'd expect in terms of how we encourage our customers to upgrade, and then that process that we walk through as well. So number one, we start with planning. So really what this is just, light planning on the initial upgrade side. So we'll take a look at any of those areas that we just need to pay attention to when upgrading. So that might be, any custom reports or inquiries that you guys have built or we have built on your behalf, any customizations that you might have, or any tweaks to things like workflows or procedures. So really what we're doing is just taking a look at anything in your environment, that's a little bit more custom that we need to pay attention to, and start to assess the workload and some of those tests that we'll want to run as we begin this upgrade process. Next, what we'll do is we'll reach out to Acumatica and we'll have that sandbox created on your behalf. So what this sandbox is essentially just a copy of your production instance, but now deployed within a sandbox environment on that new release. So 25R2 in this case. That way it's all of your data, but then obviously with those new features of that new release as well. Acumatica has that sandbox available to you for free for 90 days. So really once that's created and you guys have access to it, that's when that 90-day countdown starts to begin, and we'll work through that upgrade process. From there, we'll do a bit of tailored training. So obviously this webinar will highlight some of the main components and some high-level highlights of those features that have been added in 25R2, but it's kind of across the system. So what this tailored training will do is really focus on you guys. So any areas of the software that you guys specifically use, we get to know you pretty well in those initial implementations and our time with you. So really identifying, hey, based off of your guys and your use case and how you run your business, these are some main components that have changed within your current workflows that we just want to do some tailored training to. So that's an area that our team will start to unpack with you to highlight what might have changed, what you have access to with the new features and those types of things as well. From there, we'll typically go through kind of a mini piloting and acceptance phase. So that's where we would have our standard execution of our test scripts, and really everything we identified in that planning stage in terms of any custom reports, GIs, any customizations that exist within your system today. That's where we would test those out within that piloting and acceptance phase. And then if needed, any end users that might need training, that would typically happen in this phase as well. And then lastly, will be go live. So we'll kind of pull that new version into your production instance. We'll publish any customization packages if you have them. And it's important to note that as we kind of upgrade, everything like users, passwords, all of those types of things aren't anything that would be impacted. So not a ton of maintenance on that end, but really the areas we like to test are anything that are more custom to you and your organization. So that's kind of what to expect in terms of that upgrade process. Again, most of our customers will get into the routine of upgrading, at least once a year at a similar time. So once you get past some initial upgrades, it tends to be a pretty easy and quick process as well. All right. With that, we'll get into some of the feature highlights. So we'll start with a high-level overview of the new features, what to expect, where in the system that those kind of pop up. We'll walk through some of them in the slide deck, some newer features. So we'll highlight some of those through the slide deck, and then we'll also get into a live demonstration of certain components as well. All right, so just this high-level overview of some of the new features. As you'd expect, Acumatica rolls out new enhancements kind of system-wide. So some of these may apply directly to you guys, some may not, depending on just the edition of Acumatica you are on. But what we'll do today is highlight these kind of in this order. So one, there's some more exciting global enhancements. These areas specific to the global enhancement side have been ones we've been talking about for a little bit now. So more movement over there, some exciting stuff happening just globally within the Acumatica platform. Then we'll get into some of the CRM features, so new features on the CRM side, dive into the distribution side of things as well, then get into some of the manufacturing focused areas, the project and construction areas, and then lastly, some of the integration features as well. All right, so just in terms of the global enhancements, this will be one that we'll really hone in on the demo side. But we talked a bit last time when we walked through the 25R1 release about the modern UI. So the modern UI in 25R2 is now available. You can toggle it between screens. And so I'll highlight a couple of those areas of where we really start to see this modern UI in play. So it's going to be across the system, anywhere from dashboard views to inquiries, to entry screens, processing screens, etc. And really, they've been rolling this out for a while to make it the most kind of modern and easy to use system, as they've kind of been living up to for a while now as well. So we'll highlight those in all of these different areas as we get through the demo. The next one that is kind of pulled in initially into 25R2 is certain aspects of the AI Studio. So last month we did a webinar all about AI. Within Acumatica, the AI Studio was one that was featured. And so there are certain elements that can be added on to 25R2 to kind of test out what that could look like, and really bring in kind of your own LLM prompts into Acumatica to start to leverage that as well. So again, AI is something that they're trying to roll into some of these releases. We'll see it kind of start to bring itself forward in some of these releases as well. But then that 2026 timeframe is really where all of those kind of enhancements that we saw within that AI webinar is when we can start to kind of expect those as well. All right, so we'll show a lot of the modern UI as we get into the demo. For the CRM side, a couple of areas that we'll demo as well, but one that we'll just kind of highlight within this view here is around the sending documents via email. So obviously sending different types of documents, whether external or internal, out of Acumatica, automating that process is something that almost all of our customers leverage today. But within 25R2, they've made this process a little bit easier, specifically if you're sending multiple different documents, for example, to a customer. So previously, those would be sent and non-combined into one file, so a little bit more separate and bifurcated in that sense. But in 25R2, now when you start to process sending out those documents via email, for example, an AR invoice, a sales order, those types of things, those can now be combined. So those buttons added, as we see highlighted at the bottom there, you can send them in one email and then combine them into one file. So really making it a little bit easier on your customers. For example, if you have multiple different invoices that you have to send their way, you can kind of combine those for the customer and again, send those all in one in that sense. All right. From the sales and distribution side, a couple of areas that we'll highlight as well in the demo, a little bit around some of the machine learning and AI technology that we'll see there as well. But one that we just wanted to highlight briefly here as well is around the warehouse management side and really efficiency around directed putaway. So as you're receiving in items, there's now an added area within the stock item sheet that you can see a default put-away location. So previously that wasn't there. So really trying to automate that put-away process to reduce the amount of errors that your team may encounter during that process as well. So now on a stock item by stock item basis, you can have that default location of where you should put that item away as you're receiving it in from vendors. So just trying to enhance that and automate that process a little bit easier as well. Another feature is the ability to kind of receive and put away any non-stock items. So maybe less relevant for things that, again, aren't actually physical items, but any stock items that you maybe have and receive, but you're not necessarily tracking inventory against. That's an area that you can now kind of automate that receiving process and put those into a specific destination as well. Another distribution feature is on kind of the order entry side. So obviously this is an area that deep in the distribution side, we want to have this process as easy as possible. So as we're entering in sales orders within the system, how can we make that process easy for your sales and your sales order entry team? So now within Acumatica 25R2, you can find your inventory faster in that sales order entry screen through the full text to search functionality. So that's always been an area that we can kind of, just search at, but now you have that full text search functionality using that token-based indexing to get those accurate results, quicker as you're entering in multiple different inventory items on a sales order, for example. So again, trying to make that process a little bit easier, but one that hopefully will boost some productivity for you guys and wanted to highlight as well. All right, next, as we get into the manufacturing features, we'll start to see different areas kind of present themselves natively. Once we turn on that modern UI, we'll see that there's additional views across different areas of the software as well. So two main ones that I'll highlight today are on the manufacturing suite and then on the project side as well. But manufacturing, scheduling your production orders is always something that a lot of teams try to kind of make as seamless as possible, make sure that you guys are tracking that, scheduling that accordingly. And so obviously with that, new views and seeing that a little bit easier at your fingertips is something that is beneficial. So really within 25R2, within the modern UI views, there's a better view into your production scheduling. So kind of this view here shows what that can start to look like of unpacking, different work center views below, and then how those start to present themselves on a timeline and scheduling perspective as well. So being able to view that at a higher level, so maybe across the full week, how do you start to schedule those operations in versus for the full day or just within the hour as well. So we can get pretty granular in how we're scheduling those out. So you can kind of easily spot anything that might be held up, any delays, anything that might be overlapping, those types of things as well. All right, pivoting a bit into the project features. So there's one feature we wanted to highlight, which was the project files. So as we get more into the project in the construction industries, we'll see that these are kind of an area that a lot of customers have been asking for and wanting to make better as well. So within 25R2, the project files now has the ability to create different categories and tags to, again, categorize and group those different project documents together. So in this example, maybe you have different architecture designs and drawings that you want to categorize and group together on a specific project. Or maybe you have different contracts or compliance requirements or files that, again, you want to group and put together for that project as well. So really what this allows you to do is create different project file tags. So you can decide how you want to start to categorize those, filter on those, etc. And then those folders or those files can fall into those tags or different types of folders, for example. With that, all of the user security and access comes along for the ride. So for example, if I only wanted certain roles or certain users to be able to view my architecture designs, but then the compliance documents, for example, may be a little bit more restricted. So only a certain user or certain role could view those types of documents. That's where those would kind of fall into place as well. So the ability to add those in and then restrict user access based off of those as well. All right, this next one is an experimental feature that's added within 25R2. So really one that we've seen a lot of people on the project side ask for. And so it's really the ability to do time tracking through clock in and clock out features. So what this starts to look like is as you're within a project in a specific project task. So in this case, the installation of juicers, you'll have this new timer button added to the top of your Acumatica instance. From there, it allows you to start to clock in and clock out of specific project tasks. So if I were to kind of toggle this on, what this would look like is for my employee, I can go ahead and start to track my time. So really just press that clock in button. That's going to be running in the background. You're going to have an active kind of green status along with that project tasks at the top of your Acumatica screen. So as you're working, you'll see that you're actively in a project, and then you can pause it, which will turn that screen yellow, and then clock out as well, which turns that red and then closes that time as well. So with that, really just making that time entry process a bit easier and less manual to really clock in and out just through the click of some buttons as well.
Hey, Kaylee, we got a
Yeah.
question in the chat.
Oh, perfect.
The question says, does the project files feature allow you to query files and specific tags across multiple projects?
All right. Sorry about that. Could you repeat that, Jennifer?
Yeah. Does the project files feature allow you to query files in specific tags across multiple projects?
Yes, I believe it does. Let me verify on that. But what you could do is create those project tags. Those can be consistent across multiple different projects. And then with that filtered view, let me see if I can go back here at the top, you can start to filter by the project. But I believe you can do that. But let me just verify in terms of if you had all of those, could you filter by, for example, multiple different projects showing, but just that tag? Okay. All right. With that, we'll get into some of the live demo topics. So we'll look at the modern UI. We'll look at some of the financial, CRM, and sales and project features as well. So we'll kind of pivot a bit out of the slide deck and more into the live demo topics now. And I'll start to call out some of these new enhancements and then show a bit of a demo as well. All right, so let me exit out of this screen. All right. And Jennifer, could you just confirm that you're now seeing Acumatica?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
All right. Perfect. All right, so we'll start with some of the global enhancements first. So the first is around the modern UI. So we highlighted this briefly back in the 25R1 update, but we're seeing this rolled out in a lot of additional areas. And then I'll walk through where you can start to turn the modern UI on a screen-by-screen basis as well. So to start, you can start to see certain dashboards are available with the modern UI. So not every dashboard within the system right now is within this view, but we'll see more and more and more added, and a lot of those rolled into the 25R2 release as well. So this is an example of a dashboard with the modern UI turned on. Just so we can start to see a bit of comparison, if I go to, for example, a different dashboard that has that older UI, you'll start to see some of those differences here as well. So as that loads, just a little bit of a cleaner and crisper view in the modern UI dashboards. And then I'll also pop into the dashboard design tool, which will be a little bit more intuitive within the modern UI as well. All right, so if I go into this view, again, all of the same types of activities, types of widgets that you would expect previously. All the drill down capabilities, all of that remains the same, but really just from a UI perspective, looks and feels a little bit different and a little bit cleaner. If I go into this design tool specifically, we'll start to see some differences here in the modern UI as well. So as we're going to add a widget, this is kind of an area, again, that just be aware of. Not everyone in the organization may have access to adjust these dashboard views. But if they do, if they have access rights to these types of activities, they could go ahead and adjust these different dashboard views and create different widgets as well. So now you'll see a little bit of a different look and feel, a little bit more intuitive in terms of what type of widget I want to add. Previously, more of kind of a drop-down list. Hard to maybe visualize if you didn't know what these started to look like, what those types of widgets would be. So really a little bit cleaner on that front. And then if I go in and create a widget specifically, it's also calling my attention a little bit more than it had previously into those required fields that I want to pull in for a dashboard widget. So for example, all of those will pull from a generic inquiry. So it's telling me this is a required data field. I need to pull that in for this specific widget in order for it to populate any information. I'll want to configure a specific legend as well. So I can go ahead and select that, and then what value I want to pull in as well. So a little bit cleaner just from that UI perspective of how to create the widgets, and walking you through that process with a little bit more attention into those relevant areas and what you need to add in. All right, so that's from kind of the dashboard view. I'll go into a GI next. So we'll just take kind of the common sales order, generic inquiry. Again, all of these generic inquiry views, we can toggle the modern UI on. So I'll show you how to do that as well. But once that feature is enabled, and if you have access rights to do so, you'll see this toggle within this little settings at the top that allows you to toggle between the classic UI and the modern UI. So mine's already in the modern UI, but if I wanted to just toggle those back and forth, what that will do, it's telling me this is monitoring and toggling that screen on for all users in the system. So this is kind of that old UI view. We'll see it come a little bit more relevant and prevalent rather within the entry screens as well. But any screen within Acumatica, that tools dropdown will allow you to toggle between those two UIs. So we'll see this update here to that modern UI view. A couple of things that are different, same types of activities from a GI perspective. If I want to drag and drop columns, if I want to filter on columns, all of those types of things are available to me as well. And then one new area that we'll see in 25R2 is just this kind of dropdown. So within Acumatica, on all of these generic inquiries, you do have the ability to create different pivot table views, but maybe it's a little bit less intuitive than it is in 25R2. So within this release, this little drop down here, it's going to auto kind of populate to that generic inquiry as that table view. But if I wanted to create a new view, for example, I could do that as well. So we'll go ahead, create a new view, and we'll see what this kind of pop-up looks like as well. I could share that with other people in my organization, or this could be a personal view to me. It could also be my default view, so I could check those on and off depending on my needs as well. All right, so with this, we'll start to see kind of a pivot view pop up. So what I can start to do is create any type of view that I want, again, either for a personal inquiry or for sharing that with others within my organization, but really allows us to start to query this data a little bit better, more on an ad hoc basis. So for example, if I just wanted to pull in a couple of values for demo purposes, maybe I want to see how much customers spend across my different entities. So maybe I'll add an order total to the values. We'll want to see some branch information, customer information, etc. So really all of the fields that are available within that inquiry view will show up within this, this view, and then you can start to pivot against them. So you can add in any of those just by dragging and dropping them into these specific views. If I exit out of here, it's going to go ahead and ad hoc generate that for me. So it's going to go ahead, pull that in. We'll give it a minute to load. And so here we can start to see, order totals across my different entities for customers as well. All of the filtering capabilities are still there. We could sort this, those types of things as well. But that's kind of just a new thing that, again, the pivot table functionality exists today, but within 25R2, just being able to add that kind of ad hoc and pretty straightforward, and then having that toggle and save between any of my generic inquiries and those views is something that is a bit more advanced within this release. So again, that's just showing it on the sales order side, but that would be available within any GI in Acumatica that's turned on with the modern UI. All right, so now the last area we'll kind of highlight from a modern UI perspective is the entry screen. So here's my entry screen within my sales order, for example. Again, I could switch this back to the classic UI, but within that tools dropdown on the old UI, that's where on an entry screen basis, same thing goes for that. So you can switch it to the modern UI. And then really where this starts to get a bit interesting from a user perspective is what's called this screen configuration tool. So within the screen configuration tool, it makes it a lot easier for users to kind of customize some of these views within these entry screens. So oftentimes we'll get questions around, well, can I change the name of a certain field? Can I get rid of a certain field? Could I name a header section, for example? And so really that's what the screen configuration within the modern UI will allow you to do. So for example, now that I'm in one specific area, I can go ahead and say, hey, for my order total, maybe there's an additional area that I want to add into that header section. Or maybe I want to, change this into totals summary. So I can change that, go ahead, apply, and then I can start to see that added at the top as well. Same thing goes for any of these header areas. So maybe there's a user-defined field that I want to pull in that I've created that I want to go ahead and add to that section. I could go ahead, apply that, and then now we're seeing that populate just in a header perspective as well. So a little bit easier for doing things like adding user-defined fields, pulling those into certain areas within our screen, personalizing and customizing those entry screens a little bit more as well. All right. So that's just my personal configuration that I've added there. Again, a little bit easier in that sense. And then just to show you guys one more time, just the differences between kind of that old UI and the new one, we can toggle that on and off one more time on an entry screen and just see how that feels a little bit cleaner when seeing it kind of that comparison there. All right, with that, I know we'll chug a bit along into some of the next items from a functional perspective. So I'll show you some highlights on the CRM side, the distribution side, and then we'll show a couple of things on the project side as well. All right, so I'll start by going into the CRM side of things first. So within 25R2, another new enhancement or feature is the ability to use case management, not just for customer anymore, but for vendors. So if there's any cases or support or issue that we want to track from a vendor perspective, the case management feature within Acumatica has now been extended to allow for vendor-specific support cases. So we'll go ahead and show you what this looks like. If I go into my case classes within my preferences area, this is where I can start to see some of those different case classes. So same thing that we had before in terms of being able to group cases by class, for example, and have some default settings here. I created a new one for supplier inquiry. And so now in 25R2, what's been added is in this data entry settings, there's now a checkbox to allow or require vendors for specific cases. So I can have specific case classes for customers, so maybe an order inquiry or an item inquiry would make more sense coming from a customer. But maybe, for example, there's issues with an AP bill that you want to track for vendors. So on that customer class, you can set, or the case class rather, you can set if you're tracking it by customer, by vendor, or both. In which case that would be an account that's been extended both as a customer and a vendor in your use case. But that's where we kind of start to set this. And now as I go ahead and create a new support case and change that case class, now we'll start to see that pop up for my business accounts and who I can select is more specific to my vendors. So for example, maybe I ordered from American Glass and Door. They reach out to me to say, hey, there's been an issue processing your payment, for example. So I could go ahead, create a case for that. And then maybe I assign that to someone in my organization as well. All right. So pretty straightforward in terms of the case management side, but again, being able to extend that now to vendor-related cases. The next one that will kind of use this case as an example is enhancements around the activity tracking. So again, if you're leveraging Acumatica, you're leveraging the activity tracking within Acumatica. It kind of goes along with the modern UI, but they've kind of revamped how they do some of the activity tracking in the entry forms around it as well. So to show you what this looks like, if I wanted to add activity to a record, in this case, just my case, here's where we can start to see a couple of different look and feel from the activity side. So I could go ahead, track a summary here. We'll start to see things like the summary, the status, those kind of header fields over here, a long description area, and then details related to who that owner is, all of those types of things as well. So really try to clean up that activity screen to make it a little bit easier for tracking that activity. Obviously, as we're doing more activity tracking, a lot of those can start to add up. And the people entering those, to make that process as quick as possible is really some of the goal around there as well. But that did come out in 25R2, just cleaning up that activity entry screen, again, available through all the different activities across transactions and records in the system. All right, we'll wrap up with a couple of areas to highlight from the distribution side. So first, I'll go into my sales order preferences. And in 25R2, Acumatica rolled out some machine learning and AI capabilities on the sales order side, really around suggesting cross-sell items within your specific environment. So something that's been added, if I just go into my preferences, this is a bit behind the scenes on the setup side, but there's this new tab for machine learning. So now there's this cross-sell assistant that's been added in 25R2. So we can start to do things like predict what items you should cross-sell based off of your sales history. So we're going to set up some settings in terms of, how far back do we want to analyze? Is it just the last 3 months, for example, because you're running some promotions, you want to see, which items you should start to cross-sell within that time period. Is it across, the last year, the last 2 years? So you can start to set these specific parameters. And then maybe you want to get pretty granular in terms of your relevance score. So that will be, the threshold in which, if it's at a 50% relevance, it's maybe making that suggestion, but those items maybe aren't actually being purchased together a lot of the time, but just some of the time. Or maybe you want that a little stricter. So, I could change this to a 90% score, for example, likely yielding some less results, but more accurate results as well. And then restrictions on how many number of suggestions you want. Do you want any notifications to go out when it's generated cross-sell suggestions to you? So different settings here, really on the back end of things, kind of behind the scenes. And then what this can start to look like is we have some new processing screens added. So I can go to this generate cross-sell suggestions. So this would really be that process that you would use just to process this specific suggestion. So again, it's going to take into account your sales history based off of that threshold and time that you set on the preferences. And then I could go ahead and process this. So this does take a bit of time, so we won't process it live, but we'll go ahead. You would process this. You'd be able to view any history. And then as those are processed, it's going to generate your suggestions for you. So from there, what I can do is go to these manage cross-selling suggestions screen. And this is what would allow you to approve any of those suggestions. So it's going to give you that query or that queue based off of, again, what parameters you have set up from a sales history side. And then from there, I can go ahead and approve it or delete those. Maybe it's not relevant. I can go ahead and delete those as well. So if I were to go ahead and approve this, what this will do is it's automatically going to create those as cross-sell items associated with the stock item on that related items tab. So again, just a way of kind of monitoring your sales activity for you, and then suggesting which items should be sold together. Should I have cross-sell items for specific items? Less your team having to manage that and then manually create those cross-sell relations, but rather Acumatica taking that into account, again, using that machine learning technology from your sales history to kind of do that for you. So a pretty cool enhancement that we've seen that was rolled out in 25R2 as well. All right. The last item we'll highlight here for the sake of time is around some of the project side. So if I go into my specific projects within the construction area, there's a new view that's been added within 25R2 around just being able to view kind of a 360-degree view of a project. So for example, I just have this specific project here, but this would be available across all projects. This is my native just project screen. But if I go to project status, this is where we get kind of a better view of all the metrics across the project. So, this one has a little bit of less data in here, but what the purpose is this project status view will give you kind of that 360-degree view of the project. So how complete is the project? What's your margin to date? Do you have any billing that's over billing or under billing? How much budget do you have remaining? All of those types of things. So really kind of a holistic view of that project from a dashboarding perspective, and then being able to dive deeper into specific areas as well. So wanting to see things like the revenue budget, any change orders associated with a project, all of those types of things, all in that holistic single view is really the purpose of that dashboard. So there are a lot of new enhancements, new views, new reports, and those types of things across the system. This is kind of one example on the project side, but would encourage you guys to kind of explore the release notes, reach out to us if you have any questions, because there's a lot kind of rolling out within 25R2, and then a lot on the roadmap as well. So I know we have a couple of minutes left, but hopefully that gave a bit of a high level overview of some of the new enhancements that we're excited about in 25R2. So just to kind of wrap up here, I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, a couple of enhancements on the integration side as well. So if you're leveraging any of the commerce-related connectors, there's some with Shopify, some with BigCommerce and Amazon that they're continuing to make enhancements to. So from a Shopify perspective, there's now the ability to integrate in sales quotes from any draft orders on the Shopify side. The ability to have additional flexibility with multi-location inventory across BigCommerce. So if you have, inventory in specific warehouses and across different locations, how we can, cross those within BigCommerce at a little bit of an easier level. There have been enhancements on that side as well. And then lastly, some enhancements continue to happen around the Amazon connector. So the commerce reconciliation is now available to kind of settle reports into the bank transaction workflow. So again, areas that we've seen Acumatica kind of invest in from an e-commerce perspective, but a couple of highlights that we wanted to point out from the integration side. All right, with that, I'll kind of pause. Any questions in the chat? I know we kind of addressed the first one initially, but not seeing any others. If you have questions, feel free to chat them in here, and we can kind of follow up with you as well. But in terms of just some next steps, we'll have another webinar in November, so be on the lookout for the invite for that. The Acumatica community is one we always start to highlight within these webinars, but a lot of relevance as we get into the new feature releases. So in Acumatica's new features, they do really take into account anything within the community that customers are recommending for new features. So if you go to the community, you can see different product ideas that other people have posted. You can start to upvote those, and the more votes that they get, the more likelihood they'll be pulled into the future releases. And then you could go ahead and post product ideas as well for others to vote on as well. Again, thank you guys for joining. There's a lot in 25R2. Just highlight a fraction of that today, but hopefully it's something that you guys are excited about. And if you guys are interested in upgrading, reach out to us, and we're happy to facilitate some of those next steps. Thank you.